The security guard grabbed my arm and said I had to leave immediately. I'm Charlie Crawford, and this is my story. My daughter-in-law had just told an entire room of Silicon Valley executives that I was a crazy homeless man who somehow snuck into their exclusive IPO celebration. She demanded I be arrested for trespassing. The irony? I owned the building. See, my family held what they called my financial funeral back in 2008 when I lost everything. They declared me dead to them. For 15 years, they've treated me like I'm some embarrassing relic who threatens their perfect social media lives. But here's what they didn't know. While they were busy being ashamed of me, I was quietly building something they could never imagine. Tonight, at my son's biggest career moment, they were about to learn the truth. I didn't fight back. I didn't argue. I just smiled and waited for the manager to handle things properly. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Let me tell you how a family that declared me financially dead learned they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. To understand what happened that night, you need to know how my family sees me. I'm 71 years old. I wear Carhartt work jackets and steel-toed boots. My hands are permanently stained from 15 years of day labor jobs. When I show up to family gatherings, I look exactly like what I am, or what they think I am, a broke old man who does odd jobs to survive. My son Tyler runs a tech startup called Innovate Tech Solutions. It just went public on NASDAQ with the ticker symbol INO. He drives a Tesla Model S Plaid worth $130,000. His wife Vanessa has 85,000 followers on Instagram and carries an $18,000 Hermes Birkin bag like it's a trophy. They live in a world of venture capitalists and Forbes journalists. Their friends are state senators and TechCrunch editors, and me? I'm the embarrassing family secret they wish would disappear. The first sign of how they really see me happened 6 months ago at Tyler's birthday dinner. They made reservations for 8 people. When I arrived, there were only 7 chairs. Vanessa looked at me and said, "Oh, Charlie, would you mind sitting at the bar? This table is for the business discussion." I sat at the bar, alone, while my own son talked deals with strangers 20 feet away. The second sign was even worse. Last Christmas, they posted family photos on social media. Professional shots, perfect lighting, everyone in matching outfits. I was in exactly 0 of them. When I asked Tyler about it later, he said, "Dad, you know how important image is for the company. We can't have, mixed messages." Mixed messages. That's what I was to my own son. A mixed message. But here's what kills me the most. I wasn't always this way. I used to own Crawford Construction. Built custom homes for wealthy families across Northern California. At my peak, I had 42 employees and was pulling in $890,000 a year. Then 2008 hit. The housing market collapsed. I lost everything. The business, my savings, my retirement fund, even my house. I had to declare bankruptcy. That's when my family held what they called my financial funeral. Tyler was 21, fresh out of college, full of dreams. He looked at my bankruptcy papers and said, "Dad, you're dead to us financially. We can't be associated with failure." Vanessa wasn't even in the picture yet, but when Tyler married her 3 years later, she made it clear that my presence was problematic. She'd make comments like, "Maybe we should meet at places where the dress code is more flexible." Or she'd suggest I get cleaned up before joining them anywhere public. They thought I was surviving on Social Security and whatever cash jobs I could find, painting fences, cleaning gutters, hauling trash. The kind of work that leaves you looking exactly like I looked. Tired, rough around the edges. Definitely not Silicon Valley material. And you know what? I let them think it. For 15 years, I let them believe I was broke. I let them treat me like the family embarrassment. I let them exclude me from photos and stick me at separate tables and pretend I didn't exist when it mattered. Because I was testing them. I wanted to see who they really were when they thought I had nothing to offer. I wanted to know if my son would love his father or just love what his father could provide. The test results were in, and they were devastating. But tonight, at the Sterling Room restaurant on Financial District Drive, with 25 of Silicon Valley's most influential people watching, my family was about to discover that the man they'd written off as financially dead had been very much alive, and building something extraordinary. You might wonder why I put myself through 15 years of humiliation. Why I didn't just tell them the truth earlier. The stakes were bigger than my pride.
See, I still had my original will from 2008, the one I wrote before the bankruptcy, before the family funeral, before they decided I was dead to them. In that will, Tyler inherits everything. The house that no longer existed, the business that was gone, the savings that were wiped out. On paper, he was getting nothing, but the intention was clear. If I stayed silent tonight, if I let them continue this charade forever, Tyler would eventually inherit whatever I rebuilt. $3.8 million in cryptocurrency.
$2.1 million in real estate. The restaurant franchise is worth another $2 million. All of it would go to a son who spent 15 years being ashamed of me. But there was a bigger stake than money. There was the question of who my son really was. When I lost everything in 2008, I wasn't just testing the market's resilience. I was accidentally testing my family's character. And they failed spectacularly. Tyler could have said, "Dad, you're going through a rough patch, but we'll get through this together." Instead, he said I was dead to them financially. Vanessa could have said, "Every family has struggles, and we support each other." Instead, she made sure I knew I was an embarrassment to their image. If I revealed my wealth too early, I'd never know if they changed because they loved me or because they loved my money. The stakes were finding out who they really were when they thought I had nothing. Tonight was supposed to be their biggest moment.
Tyler's company going public. His net worth jumping from comfortable to genuinely wealthy. The Forbes journalist was there to write about young entrepreneurs. The venture capitalists were celebrating their returns. The state senators were networking for future partnerships. This was their night to shine in front of everyone who mattered in their world. But it was also my night to reveal that the man they'd kept in the shadows owned the building they were celebrating in. See, I'd been watching them for 2 years. Every family dinner, every celebration, every time they wanted to impress someone important, they chose restaurants and buildings I owned. It wasn't coincidence. It was a test. And tonight, when Vanessa finally went too far, when she actually called security on her own father-in-law in front of Silicon Valley's elite, the test was over. The stakes were simple. If I stayed quiet, I'd spend the rest of my life being their dirty secret, while they inherited wealth they didn't earn from a father they didn't respect. Or I could let them face the consequences of 15 years of treating family like garbage. The choice was easy. The Sterling Room was packed that Saturday night. Tyler had reserved the entire private dining area for the IPO celebration. 25 people, all of them important. I recognized the TechCrunch editor from her LinkedIn profile, 2 state senators, at least 4 venture capitalists who'd backed Tyler's company from the beginning. I arrived at 7:30, exactly on time. I'd gotten Tyler's text that morning. Family celebration tonight. Sterling Room. Try to look appropriate. I wore my usual clothes, clean Carhartt jacket, dark jeans, steel-toed boots, the same outfit I'd worn to every family dinner for the past 5 years. The hostess looked me up and down when I mentioned the Crawford party. "Are you Sure you're with them?"
I'm Tyler's father." Her expression shifted to confusion, then pity. "Oh, right this way." The private dining room buzzed with conversation. Tyler stood near the windows, animated, gesturing with his wine glass. He wore a custom Armani suit I estimated at $3,200. His wedding ring caught the light white gold, probably cost more than most people's cars. Vanessa held court near the bar. Her Hermes bag sat prominently on the table beside her like a signal flare. She was telling a story about their recent vacation to Napa, laughing at her own jokes, making sure everyone knew about the $500 wine tasting. I stood in the doorway for a full 30 seconds before Tyler noticed me. "Dad," his smile faltered. "You came. You invited me." "I did. Yes, good. Well, let me introduce you to—" He glanced around, clearly calculating who in the room could safely meet his embarrassing father. "Actually, why don't you grab a drink first? Settle in." Vanessa appeared beside him. She looked at my jacket and boots with barely concealed disgust. "Charlie, you look exactly like always." "Vanessa." "There's a dress code here, you know. Jacket required." I gestured to my Carhartt. "I'm wearing a jacket." She laughed, but it wasn't friendly. "Not that kind of jacket." The Forbes journalist, a woman in her 40s with silver hair and sharp eyes, approached our group. "Tyler, is this your father?" Tyler's hesitation lasted exactly 3 seconds too long.
This is Charlie. He does construction work. How wonderful. Blue-collar roots. That's great for the company narrative. She extended her hand. I'm Sarah Chen from Forbes. I'm writing about young entrepreneurs with authentic backgrounds. I shook her hand. Nice to meet you. Vanessa stepped closer. Charlie's been in transition for a while. Since the recession, really.
Haven't you, Charlie? The message was clear. Don't embarrass us. Play your part. I've been working, I said simply. Small jobs, Tyler added quickly. Keeping busy. Sarah nodded sympathetically. The 2008 crisis was devastating for small businesses, but it's wonderful that Tyler's success can help support family members who struggled. Support family members. As if I was some charity case they were generously keeping afloat. I watched Tyler's face. He didn't correct the assumption. He let the stranger believe he was supporting his poor old father out of kindness. Actually, I started to say. Vanessa cut me off. Charlie, why don't you find a seat? The presentation is about to start. She guided me toward a small table in the corner, away from the main group. Not quite exile, but close. A place where I could be technically present without interfering with their important conversations. I sat alone while Tyler gave his speech about Innovate Tech's journey from startup to public company. He talked about sacrifice and vision and taking risks. He mentioned his early investors, his brilliant team, his supportive wife. He didn't mention his father once. The wine kept flowing. $85 Wagyu steaks arrived, bottles of wine that cost $450 each. Everyone laughed at Tyler's jokes and asked Vanessa about her Instagram content strategy. I ate my steak and watched my family perform for their audience. That's when I noticed Mitchell Stevens, the restaurant's general manager, making his rounds. He was checking on each table, ensuring everything met standards. Professional, attentive, exactly the kind of manager you'd want running a high-end establishment. When he reached my corner table, he paused. Everything satisfactory tonight, sir? Perfect, thank you. He looked at me more carefully. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Confusion? He opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it. Please let me know if you need anything, he said carefully. He moved on, but I caught him glancing back at me twice. Vanessa noticed too. She whispered something to Tyler, who looked over at me with irritation. The test was about to get much more interesting. The evening progressed exactly as I expected. Tyler basked in congratulations while Vanessa documented everything for social media. I remained in my corner, the dutiful, embarrassing relative who knew his place. But two things happened that planted seeds for what was coming. The first seed was small, easy to miss. During Tyler's speech about company growth, he mentioned their headquarters location. We're fortunate to have prime real estate in the financial district, which gives us credibility with major clients. I almost smiled. Prime real estate. If only he knew. The building we're in, Tyler continued, represents exactly the kind of upscale presence we want Innovate Tech to project. Professional, established, prestigious. Vanessa nodded enthusiastically. Location is everything in business. You can't build a serious company in some rundown strip mall. The irony was delicious. Tyler's prestigious headquarters was in a building I'd purchased for $2.1 million in cash 3 years ago. Every month his company paid me $18,500 in rent. I'd approved their lease personally, though they'd worked through a property management company and never knew the actual owner's identity. I'd been their landlord for 2 years. Their mysterious, successful, obviously sophisticated landlord who demanded prompt payment and maintained the building to exacting standards. They respected that landlord. They praised that landlord. They just didn't know his name was Charlie Crawford. The second seed was more obvious, though they missed it completely. I was making conversation with Dr. Patricia Williams, one of the state senators, when she asked about my work. Construction, I said, though these days I focus more on property management. Ah, that's smart. Real estate is always solid, commercial or residential. Mixed portfolio, some residential developments, some commercial buildings. I learned early that diversification is key. Tyler overheard and laughed. Dad's being modest. He means he fixes things for property management companies. Don't you, Dad? I looked at my son. Something like that. Vanessa joined the conversation. Charlie does odd jobs. Painting, basic repairs. It's honest work. Dr. Williams nodded politely.
but I could see her confusion. My vocabulary wasn't matching their description of my work. I was talking like someone who understood real estate investment, not someone who painted fences for grocery money. The renovation costs alone can be substantial, I continued. I just approved a $1.2 million kitchen upgrade for a restaurant property. Commercial-grade equipment, custom fixtures, the works. Tyler's laugh became strained. Dad, you don't need to pretend. I'm not pretending anything. The conversation got awkward quickly. Dr. Williams excused herself. Tyler pulled me aside. What are you doing? Having a conversation. You're making things weird. These people don't need to hear about whatever you think you know about restaurant renovations. I looked around the Sterling Room's pristine dining area, the custom light fixtures I'd selected, the imported marble floors I'd approved, the wine storage system that cost $43,000. I know more about restaurant renovations than you think. Dad, please, this is important to me. Can you just try to fit in? Fit in. At a celebration in a building I owned, eating food prepared in a kitchen I'd personally redesigned, surrounded by people who were impressed by real estate success I'd achieved while they thought I was broke. I'll try, I said. Tyler relaxed. Good, thank you. But across the room, Mitchell Stevens was watching our conversation with growing interest. He'd been stealing glances at me all evening, and now his expression showed clear recognition struggling to surface. During a brief lull in kitchen activity, he approached my table again. Excuse me, sir. I hope you don't mind me asking, but have we met before? I don't think so, I said carefully. It's just, you seem very familiar. And when you mentioned the restaurant renovation costs... He paused. Are you in the industry? You could say that. Mitchell's eyes narrowed slightly. Not suspicion exactly, more like a puzzle piece trying to find its place. Well, if anything comes to mind, please let me know. I have an excellent memory for faces. He walked away, but I could see the wheels turning. The test was accelerating. Things went downhill fast after that. It started when the Forbes journalist asked for a family photo. For the feature article, Sarah explained. Young entrepreneur with authentic family support. Very compelling narrative. Tyler beamed. Vanessa immediately started arranging people. Let's get everyone by the windows. The city lights will be perfect for the shot. I stood up to join them. Oh, Vanessa said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Charlie, maybe we should do a few different shots. You know, some with the immediate family, some with extended family. Extended family. I was Tyler's father, and she'd just relegated me to extended family status in front of 25 witnesses. Tyler didn't correct her. Sarah looked confused. But this is Tyler's father, right? Shouldn't he be in the main family photo? Of course, Vanessa said with a strained smile. It's just that Charlie's not really camera ready. Are you, Charlie? She gestured at my work clothes with theatrical disappointment. I'm fine, I said. Are you, though? Vanessa's voice carried across the room. I mean, honestly, Charlie, look around. This is a Forbes photo shoot. This picture will be in a national magazine. Maybe you could have made an effort. The room went quiet. 25 successful people suddenly found their wine glasses fascinating. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa, maybe we should... What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Your father shows up to your biggest career moment looking like he just got off a construction site. It's embarrassing. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice level. I dress appropriately for my work. What work, Charlie? Seriously, what work? You paint houses, you clean gutters. You do odd jobs for cash. That's not work that requires this. She gestured at my clothes with disgust. This costume. The venture capitalists exchanged glances. Dr. Williams looked deeply uncomfortable. The TechCrunch editor was clearly taking mental notes for a very different story than she'd planned. Vanessa, Tyler said quietly, let's just take the photo. No, her voice grew sharper. I'm tired of pretending this is normal. I'm tired of accommodating someone who clearly doesn't understand appropriate social behavior. She turned to face the entire room, her voice carrying with crystal clarity. Does everyone see what I'm dealing with here? This man shows up to a Forbes photo shoot dressed like hired help. He tells stories about restaurant renovations like he's some kind of expert instead of someone who probably cleans restaurant bathrooms. He's making everyone uncomfortable with his delusions of grandeur. The silence was deafening.
I could feel 25 pairs of eyes watching this family drama unfold in real time. And the worst part, Vanessa continued, is that he's Tyler's father. He should be proud of his son's success instead of trying to steal attention with his bizarre behavior. She looked directly at me. Charlie, you lost everything in 2008. We held your financial funeral because you were financially dead. Dead. And 15 years later you're still dead, but you refuse to accept it. My hands clenched into fists. 15 years of quiet endurance, and this was the thanks I got. I think maybe you should leave, Vanessa said, before you make this evening more uncomfortable than it already is. Tyler's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He could have defended me. He could have told his wife to stop humiliating his father in public. He could have shown an ounce of respect for the man who raised him. Instead, he said, Dad, maybe that's not a bad idea. We can catch up tomorrow. Tomorrow. After his moment of glory was safely photographed and documented without the embarrassing father in frame, I looked around the room. These successful, powerful people were watching my own family treat me like garbage. Some looked embarrassed for me. Others looked entertained by the drama. None of them looked surprised. This was what my son and daughter-in-law thought was acceptable behavior. You know what? I said, standing up slowly. You're absolutely right, Vanessa. This has gone on long enough. Relief flashed across her face. She thought I was surrendering. Finally, she muttered. But I wasn't done. Before I go, though, I think there's something everyone should know. Tyler's eyes widened with panic. Dad, don't... You said I lost everything in 2008. You said I'm financially dead. You said I'm delusional about my expertise in restaurant renovations. I pulled out my phone and opened my Coinbase app. The portfolio balance glowed on the screen. $3,847,293. Here's my current cryptocurrency holdings. $3.8 million. Vanessa's confident smirk faltered. I swiped to my real estate portfolio. Here's my property management income. $31,000 per month. Net. The room was dead silent now. And about those restaurant renovation costs I mentioned? I looked directly at Tyler. I should know exactly what they cost because I paid for them. That's when Vanessa made her fatal mistake. Instead of apologizing, instead of backing down, instead of recognizing that she'd just been catastrophically wrong about everything, she doubled down. This is insane, she announced to the room. He's showing us fake apps on his phone. This is exactly the kind of delusional behavior I was talking about. She turned to the other guests with theatrical exasperation. Does anyone else see how inappropriate this is? He's making up stories about being some secret millionaire because he can't handle being called out for his embarrassing behavior. Then she played her final card. Security, she called loudly. Security. We need someone removed from the premises immediately. And that's when Mitchell Stevens, who'd been watching this entire exchange with growing recognition, finally put the pieces together. The quiet man in work clothes, the detailed knowledge of restaurant renovations, the comfortable discussion of million-dollar investments. Mitchell's face went white, because he'd just realized exactly who had been sitting in his restaurant all evening. 2 security guards appeared within 30 seconds. Professional, efficient, clearly experienced in handling disruptive customers. The Sterling Room didn't mess around when it came to maintaining their upscale atmosphere. What seems to be the problem? The lead guard asked. Vanessa pointed at me with theatrical authority. This man needs to be removed immediately. He's harassing other guests, making outrageous claims, and clearly doesn't belong in an establishment like this. She turned to address the room like a prosecutor making her closing argument. Look at him. Look at how he's dressed. Look at his behavior. He's obviously having some kind of mental episode, claiming to be a secret millionaire while dressed like a homeless person. He's making everyone uncomfortable with his delusions. The security guard looked me over. Work clothes, steel-toed boots, hands that showed decades of manual labor. To him, I probably did look out of place among these tech executives and venture capitalists. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. Tyler said nothing. My own son watched 2 strangers prepare to physically remove his father from a restaurant and said absolutely nothing. But Dr. Williams spoke up. Wait a minute. This man is Tyler's father. Surely we can resolve this without involving security. Vanessa whirled on her. That's exactly the problem. Everyone keeps making excuses for him because he's family, but being family doesn't give you the right to disrupt other people's celebrations with your mental health issues. Mental health issues. She just diagnosed me with mental health issues in front of 2 state senators and a Forbes journalist. "Ma'am," the security guard said to me, "we really need you to come with us now." That's when Mitchell Stevens appeared. He'd been watching from the service area, but now he stepped into the dining room with the kind of authority that comes from running a high-end establishment. Every conversation stopped. Even the security guards paused. "Excuse me," Mitchell said quietly. "Is there a problem here?" Vanessa immediately pivoted to him. "Yes, thank you. This man has been disrupting our private event. He's making false claims, showing fake information on his phone, and generally making everyone extremely uncomfortable. We've asked him to leave, but he's refusing." Mitchell nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And you are?" "Vanessa Crawford. This is my husband's company celebration. We've paid for this entire private dining area, and we have a right to enjoy our event without harassment from unstable individuals." "Of course," Mitchell said. "And this man who's supposedly harassing you, can you tell me his name?" "Charlie Crawford. He claims to be my father-in-law, but frankly his behavior tonight suggests he may not be thinking clearly." Mitchell's expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in his eyes. "Charlie Crawford," he repeated slowly. "Yes, and I'm telling you as the person who organized this event that I want him removed immediately." Mitchell turned to look at me directly. Our eyes met. In that moment, I saw 15 years of careful planning about to pay off. "Mr. Crawford," Mitchell said formally. "Sir." The word "sir" hung in the air like a thunderclap. Vanessa blinked. "What?" Mitchell walked over to me, his posture suddenly different, respectful, almost deferential. "Mr. Crawford, I apologize profusely for this disruption. Is everything satisfactory with your meal this evening?" The security guards looked confused. The entire room watched in bewildered silence as the restaurant's general manager treated the man they'd just been trying to eject like he was the most important person in the building. "Everything's been fine, Mitchell," I said calmly, "though I think there's been some confusion about my status here." "Indeed, there has been," Mitchell said. He turned to face the room, his voice carrying clearly to every corner. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe introductions are in order. This is Mr. Charles Crawford. He's the owner of this building." You could have heard a pin drop. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Tyler went pale as a sheet. The Forbes journalist started frantically taking notes. Mitchell continued with professional precision. "Mr. Crawford purchased this property in 2019 for $2.1 million, cash. He personally approved our franchise agreement and has been our landlord for the past 4 years. He gestured around the dining room. "The renovation you're all enjoying this evening, the custom lighting, the imported marble floors, the $43,000 wine storage system, Mr. Crawford personally approved every detail and every expenditure." Dr. Williams said, "Holy shit," then immediately covered her mouth. Mitchell wasn't finished. "The kitchen renovation that was completed 6 months ago, $1.2 million in commercial-grade equipment and custom fixtures, was funded directly by Mr. Crawford. He spent 3 days here personally inspecting the work to ensure it met his standards." He turned to Tyler specifically. "And Mr. Tyler Crawford, I believe your company Innovate Tech Solutions rents office space in this building? Your lease agreement shows monthly payments of $18,500 paid to Crawford Properties, LLC. Tyler's face went from pale to green. "You've been paying rent to your father for 2 years, Mitchell said simply. The silence stretched for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 15 seconds. Then Vanessa found her voice. "That's impossible. He's lying. Charlie's been broke for 15 years. We held his financial funeral. He does odd jobs for cash. He drives an old truck and lives in a tiny apartment." I pulled out my phone again and opened my banking app. The screen showed my primary checking account balance, $127,438. "This is just my checking account," I said quietly, "for daily expenses." I swiped to the next screen. Investment portfolio, $4.3 million. Another swipe. Real estate holdings, $3.7 million. Another swipe. Business accounts, $1.9 million. I looked up at my family. Total liquid net worth as of today, approximately $9.8 million. The venture capitalists were staring at me like I'd just announced I was from Mars. The TechCrunch editor was openly recording everything on her phone. Sarah from Forbes was scribbling notes so fast her hand was a blur. Tyler finally found his voice. "Dad, how is this possible?" I smiled for the first time all evening. Cryptocurrency, real estate, and paying attention while everyone else was busy being embarrassed by me. Mitchell stepped forward. "Mr. Crawford, would you like me to escort anyone from the premises?" The security guards were looking between Mitchell and me like they were watching a tennis match. Vanessa was still shaking her head in denial. "This can't be real. This is some kind of elaborate hoax." I looked at my daughter-in-law, the woman who just tried to have me arrested in my own building. "Vanessa," I said calmly, "you called security on the landlord." The room remained frozen in shocked silence. 25 successful people processing the fact that they'd just witnessed a family publicly humiliate a multimillionaire who owned the building they were sitting in. I looked at Mitchell. "Could you bring me the building's lease agreements? I think everyone might benefit from seeing some documentation." "Certainly, Mr. Crawford." Mitchell disappeared toward his office. The security guard stood awkwardly, clearly unsure whether they should leave or stay. Tyler and Vanessa remained motionless, like deer caught in headlights. Dr. Williams broke the silence. "Charlie, I owe you an apology. I completely misunderstood your situation." "No apology necessary. You were working with the information you had." The Forbes journalist approached cautiously. "Mr. Crawford, would you be willing to give me a statement? This is quite a story. I think my family has provided enough entertainment for one evening." Tyler finally found his voice. "Dad, I don't understand. If you've had this money all along, why did you let us think?" "Let you think what, Tyler? Let you think I was broke? Let you think I was embarrassing? Let you think I was dead to you financially?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot. "This is your office lease. You've been paying me rent for 2 years. Did you ever once think to ask who your landlord was?" Tyler stared at the document. "The lease says Crawford Properties, LLC. I thought it was a coincidence." Crawford Properties, LLC. My company, my building, my investment. Vanessa was scrolling frantically through her phone. "This doesn't make sense. Your address is listed as that little apartment on Cedar Street." "That's my mailing address. I own that building too. Purchased it in 2020 for $430,000. It's worth about $700,000 now." I let that sink in for a moment. "Vanessa, you've spent 5 years telling people I'm an embarrassment to your family. You've excluded me from photos, stuck me at separate tables, and tonight you tried to have me arrested. All because you thought I was poor." Mitchell returned with a thick folder of documents. "Mr. Crawford, here are the building ownership papers, the franchise agreement, and the renovation contracts you requested." He spread them across our table. Official documents with official seals and my signature on every page. The venture capitalists gathered around to examine the papers. I watched them recognize the legitimacy of everything I'd claimed. "Jesus," one of them muttered. "This is all real." I turned to my son. "Tyler, your company is valued at approximately $12 million after the IPO. Congratulations. That's genuinely impressive for someone your age." Tyler looked confused by the praise. "But here's what I want you to understand. While you were building your company, I was building mine. While you were raising capital from investors, I was investing my own money. While you were disrupting the tech industry, I was quietly acquiring real estate." I gestured around the restaurant. "We're both entrepreneurs, Tyler. The difference is that I did it without being ashamed of my father." Vanessa interrupted. "But why? Why did you hide this from us?" I looked at her directly. "Because I wanted to know who you really were. I wanted to know if my family would love me when they thought I had nothing to offer. That's not fair." "Isn't it? Tonight, in front of all these people, you called me mentally unstable. You said I was having delusions of grandeur. You tried to have security physically remove me from my own building." I stood up slowly. "You didn't do those things because I was poor, Vanessa. You did them because you thought I was powerless." The room watched this family reckoning unfold like a soap opera. But I wasn't done. "Mitchell," I need to make some business decisions tonight. Of course, sir. First, I want to review Innovate Tech's lease agreement. Specifically, the clauses regarding tenant conduct and building reputation. Tyler's face went white. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm very serious. Your wife just created a public disturbance in my building. She called security on the property owner. That reflects poorly on the establishment and creates liability issues. I looked at the gathered witnesses. Everyone here saw what happened. Forbes will probably write about it. TechCrunch might cover it. This incident will be associated with my property forever. Mitchell nodded. I understand your concern, Mr. Crawford. What would you like me to do? Prepare a formal notice regarding lease violations. I'll review Innovate Tech's tenancy status next week. Tyler stepped forward. Dad, please, you can't punish my business because of personal family issues. This isn't personal, Tyler. This is business. Your wife created a disturbance that required security intervention. She made false accusations against the building owner. She disrupted other tenants' legitimate use of the premises. I turned to Vanessa. Those aren't family issues. Those are legal issues. Vanessa was shaking her head repeatedly. This is insane. You can't destroy Tyler's company because I made a mistake. I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting my investment. Would you rent office space to a company whose leadership behaves this way in public? The venture capitalists exchanged worried glances. Bad publicity could tank a newly public company's stock price. Dr. Williams spoke up. Charlie, perhaps there's a way to resolve this privately? I considered her suggestion. Maybe. But first, I think my family needs to understand something important. I looked at Tyler and Vanessa. For 15 years, you treated me like I was worthless because you thought I was poor. Tonight, you discovered I'm actually wealthy, and now you want mercy because I have power. I gathered the lease documents. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. And character, unlike money, can't be rebuilt overnight. The test was complete, and they had failed spectacularly. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Tyler was pleading with me to reconsider the lease review. Vanessa was alternating between denial and desperate apologies. The Forbes journalist was asking everyone for quotes. The venture capitalists were huddled together, probably calculating the impact on their investment. But the real consequences wouldn't be immediate. They'd unfold over the following weeks, rippling through Silicon Valley's tight-knit community like aftershocks from an earthquake. The first consequence hit before we even left the restaurant. Sarah from Forbes approached me directly. Mr. Crawford, I'm reframing my entire article. Instead of writing about young entrepreneurs, I want to focus on family dynamics in successful business families, the hidden costs of image management, the price of authenticity. She looked at Tyler, who was still standing in shocked silence. This story, about a son who was ashamed of his multi-millionaire father because he dressed like a working man, this is going to resonate with a lot of people. Tyler's face went ashen. You can't write about this. It would destroy my company's reputation. Actually, Sarah said, I think it might do the opposite, if you handle it right. But Tyler wasn't listening. He was calculating damage control, not learning lessons. The second consequence came from Dr. Williams. Charlie, I want to apologize again for misunderstanding your situation, but I also want to discuss something with you privately. She pulled me aside while Tyler and Vanessa were still processing their new reality. I sit on the board of 3 charitable foundations that focus on financial literacy and entrepreneurship education. Based on what I witnessed tonight, I think you might be exactly the kind of speaker we need. What do you mean? Someone who rebuilt from bankruptcy to multimillionaire status? Someone who understands both sides of wealth and poverty? Your story could help a lot of people. She handed me her card. Think about it. You've clearly learned something about money and character that most people never figure out. The third consequence was already spreading through social media. Vanessa had been live streaming portions of the evening on Instagram before everything went sideways. Her 85,000 followers had watched her humiliate her father-in-law, not knowing they were watching her humiliate a millionaire. The comments were brutal. Did she really try to have security remove her own family member? This is why money can't buy class. Imagine being this entitled and then finding out you're completely wrong. That poor man, his own family treating him like garbage. By midnight, clips of the confrontation were circulating on TikTok and Twitter.
Not the full story. People didn't know about my wealth yet, but enough to show a woman calling security on an elderly man who was clearly Tyler's father. The narrative was writing itself, and it wasn't flattering. The fourth consequence hit Tyler's business directly. Monday morning, I received a call from Rebecca Martinez, the property manager who handled my commercial real estate portfolio. Charlie, I'm getting calls about the Innovate Tech situation. Word is spreading fast through the venture capital community about what happened Saturday night.
What kind of calls?
Investors want to know if the lease dispute will affect their valuation. Building tenants are asking if there's going to be ongoing drama. 3 other tech companies have inquired about Innovate Tech's office space, thinking it might become available. The business community was treating this like a legitimate commercial crisis, not a family squabble. The fifth consequence was the most unexpected. Mitchell called me Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Crawford, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly, but I wanted you to know we've received 17 interview requests from journalists wanting to do follow-up stories about Saturday night. 17? The New York Times, Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch, Bloomberg, Forbes, obviously, and 12 others. The story is spreading beyond Silicon Valley. They're calling it the restaurant revelation and when family meets finance. He paused. There's something else. We've had 43 new reservation requests from people who specifically mentioned they want to dine where that family drama happened. It's becoming a Silicon Valley landmark. My family crisis was turning into a tourist attraction. The sixth consequence was personal. Wednesday morning, Tyler showed up at my apartment, my modest mailing address apartment that I now knew he thought was evidence of my poverty. Dad, we need to talk. I let him in. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept since Saturday night. The story is everywhere. My investors are panicking. Vanessa's lost 3,000 Instagram followers since the video clips started circulating. Our friends won't return our calls. He sat down heavily on my simple IKEA couch. I need to know what it's going to take to make this go away. That's when I realized he still didn't understand. Tyler, this isn't something that goes away. This is consequences. What do you mean? I mean, you spent 15 years treating your father like an embarrassment. You held my financial funeral. You excluded me from family photos. You made me sit at separate tables. You let your wife call me mentally unstable in front of reporters. I sat across from him. Those choices had costs. You're paying them now. But Dad, I didn't know. That's exactly the problem. You treated me badly because you thought I couldn't hurt you, because you thought I was powerless, because you thought there would never be consequences. I pulled out my laptop and showed him the news articles that had published since Saturday. Tech CEO's wife calls security on millionaire father-in-law. Silicon Valley family drama exposes wealth assumptions, when success forgets where it came from. Tyler read in horrified silence. The story isn't that I'm rich, Tyler. The story is that you didn't care whether I was rich or poor. You just cared that I wasn't useful to your image. The seventh and final consequence was the one that mattered most. Thursday evening, I revised my will. My lawyer, Sandra Peterson, reviewed the changes carefully. Charlie, are you certain about this? You're removing Tyler as your heir entirely? I'm not removing him. I'm making his inheritance conditional. I had restructured everything. Tyler could inherit my wealth, but only after completing 5 years of volunteer work with financial literacy programs for bankruptcy survivors. Only after publicly acknowledging his treatment of his father. Only after demonstrating that he understood the difference between wealth and worth. If he learns the lesson, I told Sandra, he gets everything. If he doesn't, it all goes to charity. And Vanessa? Vanessa gets exactly what she gave me, nothing. That evening I called Tyler and told him about the new will conditions. His response told me everything I needed to know about whether he'd learned anything. Dad, that's not fair. You can't hold our money hostage because of one bad night. Our money? He still thought my wealth belonged to him automatically. The test results were in. After 15 years and one very public revelation, my family had failed completely. But at least now I knew exactly who they were. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same corner table at the Sterling Room, reading the final Forbes article about what the media had dubbed the restaurant revelation. Sarah Chen had done excellent work. The piece wasn't just about my family. It was about broader questions of wealth, authenticity, and the price of image management in American culture. The Crawford case, she wrote, raises uncomfortable questions about how we treat people we perceive as powerless, and how quickly those dynamics change when we discover hidden resources. She'd interviewed dozens of people who'd experienced similar family dynamics, adult children ashamed of blue-collar parents, families torn apart by economic assumptions. The piece had sparked conversations across the country about class, respect, and family loyalty. Tyler's company had survived, barely. The stock price dropped 30% in the first month after the story broke, but it had stabilized once the initial shock wore off. Turns out, having a multi-millionaire father who'd rebuilt from bankruptcy wasn't actually bad for a tech company's image, if you handled it right. Tyler never learned to handle it right. He'd hired a crisis management firm to help rehabilitate his reputation. They'd advised him to embrace the narrative of learning from his father's resilience and wisdom. Instead, Tyler had given interviews where he continued to justify his treatment of me. "My father hid his wealth from us," he'd told TechCrunch. "How were we supposed to know he was successful if he deliberately misled us about his situation?" The comments section had destroyed him. Thousands of people pointing out that his father's wealth didn't excuse 15 years of family cruelty. Vanessa had handled things even worse. She doubled down on social media, claiming she was the real victim of an elaborate deception. Her follower count had dropped to 38,000 and was still falling. They'd moved out of Tyler's office building. Not because I'd forced them to, but because the constant media attention and awkward encounters in the lobby had made staying impossible. I'd never actually reviewed their lease for violations. I didn't need to. The natural consequences of their choices had been punishment enough. But the most important development was what happened with Dr. Williams's invitation. I'd started speaking at financial literacy workshops across California. Bankruptcy survivors, people rebuilding after foreclosure, families struggling with economic shame. My story resonated because I'd been where they were. The speaking fees were substantial, $15,000 per event. But I donated everything to programs that helped people rebuild after financial disaster. Money, I would tell audiences, doesn't define your worth, but how you treat people when you think they're powerless. That reveals everything about your character. The workshops had evolved into something bigger. I was developing a program called Character Capital, teaching people that relationships and integrity were investments that paid dividends money couldn't buy. Mitchell had become a close friend through all this. He'd left the Sterling Room to become general manager of my newest acquisition, a restaurant I'd purchased specifically to employ people rebuilding from bankruptcy. Mr. Crawford, he'd said when I offered him the position, "I've worked in hospitality for 20 years. I've never seen someone use wealth the way you do." How's that? Like a tool for testing character instead of displaying status. That conversation had crystallized something I'd been thinking about for months. I'd spent 15 years testing my family, and they'd failed. But the test itself had been valuable. It had shown me who deserved my resources and who deserved my time. The new restaurant, called Second Chances, hired exclusively from bankruptcy survivor programs, former executives who'd lost everything in economic downturns, small business owners who'd been wiped out by circumstances beyond their control. People who understood that financial failure wasn't moral failure. Business was excellent. Turns out, employees who'd experienced rock bottom and rebuilt themselves were incredibly motivated and loyal workers. Tyler had asked to meet with me several times over the past 6 months. I'd declined each request, not out of anger, but because I'd learned everything I needed to know about his character. The way someone treats you when they think you're powerless tells you who they really are. Tyler thought I was powerless, and he'd treated me accordingly. Now he knew I was powerful, and he wanted mercy. But mercy without acknowledgement wasn't mercy. It was just transaction. If Tyler wanted a relationship with his father, he needed to understand why his behavior had been wrong, not because it hurt a rich man, but because it hurt any man. The new will conditions remained in place. 5 years of volunteer work, public acknowledgement of his mistakes, demonstrated understanding of the lessons. So far, he'd completed none of them. Instead, he'd hired lawyers to contest the will's validity. They'd argued that making inheritance conditional on charitable work was coercive and potentially illegal. The lawyers had lost, comprehensively. Judge Catherine Morrison had been particularly blunt in her ruling. Mr. Crawford has every right to structure his estate to encourage charitable behavior from his heirs. The conditions are clearly stated and entirely achievable. If Mr. Tyler Crawford objects to earning his inheritance through service to others, he's free to build his own wealth. That ruling had been covered extensively in legal journals as a precedent for ethical inheritance structures. I finished reading the Forbes article and looked around the Sterling room. 6 months ago, my family had tried to have me ejected from this place. Now I owned it, employed people through it, and used it as a case study for treating everyone with dignity regardless of their apparent status. The test was over. The results were final. I had a new family now. The people I employed, the bankruptcy survivors I mentored, the audiences who came to hear about rebuilding from nothing. Character capital, it turns out, pays better dividends than any cryptocurrency investment I'd ever made. As I walked out of the restaurant that night, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was grateful. My family's betrayal had taught me the most valuable lesson of all. When people show you who they really are, believe them. And when they fail your tests, don't give them easier tests. Find better people to invest in. Let me know in the comments. Would you have changed your will too?